Welcome to the breakdown on Latte Firm. Arsenal finally have their man back. William Saliba is coming back to London Colney and he will be playing for Arsenal next season, hopefully. I'm delighted to be joined by Julien Laurens. Julien, welcome to the firm. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm very excited for my debut.
Do you know what? The pleasure is all mine, and I'm sure the pleasure is going to be of our viewers. Thank you so much. Just in case anybody is hiding under a rock and doesn't know who you are and what you do, can you just give us a brief introduction as to your work and your background?
Yeah, of course. So I'm French, as you can probably hear. Paris, born and bred, as you would know if you follow my work, because I keep going on and banging on about Paris players and kids from Paris. I've been in this country a long time now, 18 years. And I basically cover football. I do the French players and French football for English media and especially ESPN, for who I work a lot. And then I do the Premier League and the French players in England for French media and RMC, who have the rights, the TV rights in France and big radio channel as well. So yeah, I've got a show on ESPN that you can catch on BT Sport every Monday, Thursday with Gabriele Marcotti, the Gab and Jules show. It's also a podcast, and you can see on YouTube. You see loads of clips on YouTube. So yeah, it keeps me really, really busy.
And I love that podcast with you and Gabby.
Thank
Honestly,
you.
it's really, really good fun. And I love how you sort of, give us a teaser every week before you kind of go
Of
live.
course.
It's fabulous. Look, Julien, there's going to be a lot of excitement around the Arsenal fan base because William Saliba, a chap that we signed almost 3 years ago now, is finally due to come back and return to Arsenal Football Club and hopefully play with us. But I kind of want to just get from you today an overview of his career so far, a little bit about his upbringing and his playing style. I want to talk about strengths and weaknesses, and then get your thoughts on how he might fit into the Arsenal sort of team. But before we do all of that, he won the young, player of the year last year in France. Tell us about the hype around William Saliba. Is he the real deal? Why is he, having so much attention towards him?
Yeah, it's a good, I think, good way to start the conversation about him, because he was a wonder kid. Really, I think there's no other words. When he broke onto the scenes at Saint Etienne, we knew there was this kid from Paris who started in the same club as Kylian Mbappe, there was that hype already when he was a youngster around him. He was this centre back, really strong, really quick, good on the ball. That was about to make his debut for Saint Etienne. Saint Etienne is a huge club in France. You don't just make your debut for Saint Etienne when you're not really, really good. So there was all that hype, which was justified completely, because he started in Ligue 1 like if he'd been there for 10 years. He was so mature, so good in a team that needed someone like him at the back defensively, that his progression was incredible, really. In the space of only, I think he played 31 games in Ligue 1 before going back after Arsenal signed him. So it was clear to see for everyone how talented he was. The question was the move to Arsenal maybe a little bit too early? Maybe not. Obviously, there was that big injury that I think changed the whole narrative and the whole dynamic of that move. It was a very, very clever move from Arsenal, very intelligent move to get him at his age at 30 million, because I believe a couple of years later he would have cost Chouameni's money, for example, although a different position, but he would have gone for 60 or 70. And yet that injury sort of prevented him really plus the pandemic, plus a lot of other things, but preventing him from having maybe the arrival that he would have liked. The fact that Ligue 1 stopped so brutally during the pandemic and so early compared to other leagues didn't help. So there was a lot of circumstances that made it maybe tougher than what he expected and a lot of us expected. After that, there's a new manager who is not the one who signed you, of course, and maybe sees things differently, Mikel Arteta, and maybe feels that you need to go on loan to get a bit more experience and to get your mojo back. And that's why he went back to France. But I think the hype was completely justified. And again, I can't stress enough what clever signing he was from Arsenal when they did sign him, not knowing what would happen, of course, and after that.
Of course, when he signed, he announced himself on the scene with a wonderful sort of trailer video that's obviously done the rounds on social media. Great soundtrack. He's coming off a plane. He's with his agent. It's really well done. And of course, that's a bit of a statement to make when you're such a young boy. And we knew that he was going to be at Saint Etienne for that first season. He then came back to Arsenal. There was, pre-season appearances, of course, then went to Nice, I think, in January of that season. But last season, of course, at Marseille, where he was absolutely fabulous. So we're going to talk about all of that stuff. But before I do, Jules, I'm just going to go, as I normally do, and just share a couple of slides on screen. So, look, we signed him 3 years ago. Hopefully now you can see this on your screen. Yeah. What do we know about him now? So fast forward, look, he's a French international, a very, very new one at that. But we know that he's a centre-back. He's 21 years of age, 6'4", real presence about him, has an aura about him as a centre-back. Predominantly right-footed. He played 36 league games last season, 5 yellows and no reds, with 1.5 tackles per game, which is quite interesting. And we'll talk about that in just a second. I've got some stats to hopefully blow the minds of the viewers. Didn't score any goals. I thought that was quite interesting, and we'll talk about that perhaps. And he's got a contract at Arsenal that expires in 2024. You've just talked about his upbringing. It's very commonly known that he was an Arsenal fan as a boy. I think his parents, his father is Lebanese and his mother is of Cameroonian descent, and they both bought him an Arsenal shirt when he was a young kid. He finally signed for us, his boyhood club, back in 2019. But like we said, he's had loan moves away. When he first sort of came back from Nice, there was a lot of talk about him maybe playing for Arsenal. But of course, like you just said, Mikel Arteta went a different way. At the time, there was a lot of rumor about him maybe not settling in England. Maybe, I think there was a death in his family. He was homesick. Of course, he joined during a global pandemic. So there was lockdown. He probably wasn't allowed to travel too far in England, where he didn't have any other sort of friends or acquaintances. What was the main reason, do you think, Jules, for Saliba going on loan last season to Marseille? Because there is a significant proportion of the Arsenal fan base that think, well, he could have played, he could have stayed, and he would have made a difference to this team.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. That's a fair point. I think he needed some game time, and I don't think that maybe Arteta saw him as a starter and as a consistent performer maybe in the Arsenal team enough to say, okay, you can stay, but we also want you to play and we want to see you more, and we need you to play because you're so young and you're coming back from not that long ago from a really big injury, so you kind of need to play. It's okay to stay in the squads, but if White and Gabriel perform well and you're William Saliba and you're there sat on the bench or playing 5 minutes there, 10 minutes there, the League Cup there, the FA Cup there, especially in a season with no European competition for Arsenal, then suddenly it feels like a very long season where you could have maybe used it in a better way. And I think that was the idea for the move. The move was Marseille, who played in the Europa League to start with, in the Europa League and then Europa Conference League, where you knew that the aim and the ambition was a top 3 finish in Ligue 1. So this was a really good team that was going to go for big things in the league, with a manager in Jorge Sampaoli that plays with a lot of intensity, very good schooling, especially for defenders, because you play such a high line, and then you can't make a mistake because then after you is the goal open pretty much. So all of that, I think it made sense. He wanted to play, really wanted to play. And they said, you know what, you still have then 2 years left on your contract after that when you come back. So 2024, as you say, is when his contract expires at the moment. So it made a lot of sense, I think, to see what he would do in that kind of environment, which is a very different environment to Nice. Nice was great, and he had 6 really good months there with Todibo and Dante. But this was different. Marseille felt a step higher, and then it was a lot to see. Okay, certainly that's how I saw it. If you can make it there and impose yourself and be really, really good and really solid, then I think you'll be ready to come back to Arsenal and really fight for a starting place, which I don't think was the case a summer ago when he just came back from 6 decent months with Nice.
Do you know, Jules, I think you've hit the nail on the head. It's basically game time. We went into a season at Arsenal without European football this season. We were limited to the 38 Premier League games and, of course, the domestic cup competitions. But the club deliberately sent him out there to get game time in an environment in a country that he knows, because he's been playing football in France since a young age. And actually, if I just bring up some stats, I mean, he played the most minutes across Europe's top 5 leagues for any under-21 player. And even though it says on the screen there that he's played 36 Ligue 1 games, he's actually played 56 games in the entire campaign. So all the Europa League games that he played, 6 or 7 of those, the Europa Conference League games that you mentioned, a couple of international caps as well. And just in terms of stats, I mean, 1.5 tackles per game, but he also completed the most passes in Ligue 1 since records began last season for a centre-back, which is phenomenal. He also ranked top for possession won, so 260 times he won possession as a defender. The most progressive carries, so 558 progressive carries, again, in Ligue 1, and successful dribbles, 31 of those as a defender. And that's what I want to focus on now, is sort of playing style. So if I may, Jules, let's move on to that. On this screen now, you should be able to see a radar courtesy of my good friend Scott Willis, who is at O_that_crab. Jules, you might be really familiar with this. It might be small on your screen, but let me just explain. There are 3 traits here of a player. You can see William Saliba's game broken down into the attacking side, which is the blue section, the small section. You've got the grey side, which is possession, which is phenomenal. And that really blows my mind. He's in the highest percentile for so many qualities and traits that are linked to possession-based football. And then you've got the defensive side of his game. Before we look at these sort of numbers, can you just explain to us his style of defending, Jules? I mean, is he a no-nonsense brute of a centre-back, or is he a centre-back who has a lot of finesse, ball playing, ball carrying? Tell us about his style.
Yeah, I mean, when you learn to play football with Kylian Mbappe's dad, Wilfried, I think what he will teach you is not to be a brute and to be, that kind of defender. He's very much, for me, a midfielder that has moved to the back, which he's not, by the way. He's always been a defender, but he's so good on the ball. You mentioned the progression carries with the completing passes. I think he completed 93% of his passes, but the most important is not so much the 93, because you and I can do 93% of successful passes if it's me to you over 1 yard. But I think in the opposition half, he's had the ratio of 90% or 89% successful passes, which means that when he drives with the ball and he steps into the opposition half, then the passes is still almost perfect. And this is what he brings to you. He can bring the ball out from the back easily on his own, or he finds a pass. He's this kind of super modern centre back, if you want, that can easily play in midfield. I think that is comfortable on the ball, that doesn't mind the pressure at all. He can take it. Someone comes to him, he's not phased. He's got that confidence in him as well. So he will be like that. Then, in the duels, he's really strong. He's good. He's got a lot of pace as well. He can play on the right, on the left of the back four of the 2 centre backs. He can play in the back 3, which they played with Marseille quite a lot as well this season. And he's played either as a right centre back in the 3, or even as the sweeper. He can do all of that. He's quite similar to Konate at Liverpool in the sense, him and Konate, I think, will partner each other. They've already played together the other night against Austria, but I think could be the French pair of centre backs for the next 10 or 15 years easily, or certainly would be in competition for places, because they are quite similar in the way they play. So there's of course room for improvement. I think you mentioned in the air scoring goals as well, although Marseille were never good on set pieces this season, so that maybe explains why he's got 0 goals. And also, that was not so much what Sampaoli wanted him to do. What he did a lot, for example, this season, is overlapping as a centre back, which is again something that Arteta doesn't do yet, but might be tempted to do with William, because he's very, very good at doing that, and he was very efficient with Sampaoli to create those 2v1s, especially on the right hand side when he was in the back 3. So very, very interesting player. I mean, I'm completely biased, of course, and I'm happy with that, but I think he's a wonderful talent.
There's a lot to be excited about, but of course, before coming on air, we were talking about maybe a couple of his weaker areas that people have pointed out. His aerial domination. What's he like defending set pieces in the air? Because obviously the stats here don't show that he's that strong. And of course, goal threat. Nico Jova, the set piece coach at Arsenal, has done a wonderful job last season. Gabriel scoring quite a few goals at set pieces as our left-sided centre back. Is William Saliba? Could William Saliba be a threat at set pieces?
I think so. He's got the height for it. The problem with Marseille is that there was not much of a structure on set pieces. There was not much work on set pieces, not much of a structure defensively or offensively, which maybe can explain why. To be fair, I didn't look at what happened in Saint-Etienne, if he scored many or not. And I can't remember really, again, what the routines and the patterns were on set pieces defensively and offensively. But I can't see why he could not be better and could not be more of a threat offensively and be more solid defensively. Again, if you look at his defensive, he's very much of a a front foot defender. Is that how you say in English as well?
Yeah.
You know, like he's not on his heels. He's very much like on the forefront, anticipating. His reading of the game is great. He committed 0.5 foul per game in Ligue 1 in 36 games this season. So it's not even 1 foul per game, which blows my mind really, because he's that kind of guy. He doesn't commit himself unless he knows that he's getting the ball. So there's very limited fouls that he will commit. He's not rash in the way he defends, like, you know, a bit crazy sometimes when you go for it and you know you're not going to get the ball and you still go and it's a foul. You said 5 yellows in 36 matches, no reds. It's pretty impressive as well. But yeah, in terms of duels in the air, I think he's only the ratio is 61% successful duels. So there needs to be work, I think, to be done on that. That's probably the one thing where I would say he has to improve.
And you mentioned that Marseille, they play a high line. So once the attacker's in behind, there's a lot of space. And there's a really famous picture of William Saliba running back and tackling Kylian Mbappe. Really fabulous photograph if you've seen. What's his recovery pace like? Because again, people talk about him, you know, you mentioned he's quick, but is he rapid quick? Is he electric fast?
When you catch back Kylian, you're really quick. And Kylian still says to this day that it was a foul. William says he touches the ball, but yeah, he's got that pace over the first 5 yards, which I think makes a big difference, especially for a big guy like him. And I think this is one of his main assets, is that, as we mentioned, he's happy to have the ball, play the high line, suits him very much, because there's no fear, which I find incredible, because he's 21, turned 21 in March, and there's no fear. He's happy to play the high line, and he knows exactly what to do if he sees the ball going over the top. He's not scared to having to turn and chase an attacker, even Kylian Mbappe. All of that, yes, he's made a few mistakes this season. Not in the league, because in the league, in the 36 games that he played again in Ligue 1, there's not an error that he made that led to a chance or that led to a goal even, which is, again, very impressive. However, in Europe, especially the Feyenoord game, where it was towards the end of the season, where he was really, really tired. He was a bit more wobbly. With the national team, again, this is a step higher. And, you know, I think he's ready for it, but I'm not sure he's ready to play 4 games in 10 days, which is not what he did. But again, I think there was a lot to take on in the current international break. So there was a couple of times where he could have done with a few situations a bit better. But this is part of the learning curve. Let's not forget, again, a bit like for Gabriel, White to a certain extent, but White is older than them. But they're only 21, 22 years old. This is really, really young for a centre-back. A lot of centre-backs reach their peak after 26 years old. You need to be 21 and having a season like William just had in Marseille. You can think what you want of the level of Ligue 1, and it's nowhere near, of course, the Premier League. But still, to put up those numbers when he's still so young, when all of this is very much a learning curve. Never before he played 55 or 56 games in a season. So for him to be able to have that kind of season with those numbers, with the success that Marseille and him have had collectively and individually, I think it's really impressive. And I think Arsenal fans should be excited. Of course, you can have, you know, reserves on certain things and reservations on this and that, or you would want to see him in that kind of context, of course. But I think there's a lot to be excited by.
My mouth is watering. Just final sort of point on Williams' playing style. What's his temperament like? Because you talk about, you know, he's obviously a very confident chap. He's obviously a very ambitious chap from the way that he announced himself moving to Arsenal, for, you know, him getting now his first cap with France and potentially being, you know, the lifelong sort of centre back with Konate. What's he like away from football? You know, what's he like in the dressing room? Do you have any sort of insight into that?
Yeah. He's really chill guy. You know, really, really chilled when he's off the pitch. Not phased. Again, we go back to the pressure that almost, like, you know, slips on him when he was called up the first time. I was probably more excited than him, and he was so cool. And I was like, how can you be so cool? And he was just like, you know, I think because the way they see it, and Konate is the same, and there's Upamecano is the same, and we've got this incredible generation of young centre backs in France, which blows my mind of all the depth that we had in this position. But it's just that this is almost what they kind of expected, which sounds really arrogant, and it's not. It's just that when they look at the progression and where they were when they were 18 and 19, which was already really, really high, the feeling that they have is like, okay, then you make your debut in Ligue 1, then you sign for a top club, then you play with the national team, and then you keep winning and winning and winning and winning and winning. And so I got really excited for him because we're close and I like him and he's such a good guy and such a talent that it felt like, wow, this is amazing. And he was like, yeah, it's amazing. But it was like, it was just so cool, so normal about it. I was like, wow, okay. And again, this time in June, because you never know if from March to June you're still going to make the squads. And he did again. And this time he had a bigger role to play. So chill, no problem. Pressure, doesn't know what that means. And then and then in the dressing room, he's a Paris boy, So, and what comes with it, he jokes, he talks a lot. RMC, the TV channel that I work for in France, have this really good concept which they're trying to bring to England, and where in clubs where there's enough French-speaking players, where you brought 4 players of the same team in the team dressing room, whether it's the training ground or the stadium, and then there's no presenter, there's no one, there's just a guy with a voiceover basically that leads them a little bit, but then it's those 4 guys just talking to each other and taking the mickey at each other in their own dressing room basically. And he did it for Marseille this year with Payet, Gay, and Camara, I think. And he was just like, he was the Joker. He was taking the mickey of everyone. This is what he does. He brings this really positive vibe around where football should be fun. And Arsenal might be a little bit different because it's not his language, although his English is improving. And this will be really the first time he will really be part of the squad. He would really be part. He's going to go on tour in the US, where he's going to get to know everyone a bit better. Where pre-season is so important. It really, really is important because he's been to pre-seasons before. This is not the point, but when you come back to a club like that, especially after Arsenal had such a good season and Gabriel and White did so well for most of it, he will want to make a good impression, and I think he will do that. He's got that really wicked personality, and I think people will really like him in the dressing room. You cannot not like him. And then for the fans, I hope the fans will get to know him before making a judgment, because I think it's too easy to say, oh, look, he signed 3 years ago and we haven't seen him yet. We don't know exactly what what he's like on the pitch, off the pitch. Give him a bit of time, because I think he's got a lot about him.
Is he a future leader? Could you see him captaining Arsenal?
Yeah, he was captain in a lot of the youth teams that he played in. I think he certainly has that in him. And if he's not the captain, because there's only going to be one armband, I think he will certainly be part of the leadership group. Maybe not as early as this season coming, because again, this will be a lot of it will be new in a team that has already been functioning for a year, a full year with this setup, with these squads. So he will, he's not the kind of guy who will also arrive saying, I'm William Saliba, I was just voted the best young player in Ligue 1. It's me, look at me, listen to what I've said. He's not going to be like that at all. He's going to arrive and knowing that he needs to find his place in that dressing room, a dressing room that is already, as we've been saying, functioning really well and working really well. I think, like I said, stayed, that would have helped him, but there's other French speaker players that will help him, massively. That's not a problem at all. But like I said, would have played that kind of father figure, which he's played a lot this season with a lot of players, even non-French players. But yeah, he will be cool in that dressing room.
I hope so. Just while you were saying that, I've just brought up a radar that compares him to Ben White. So Ben White, obviously coming in from Brighton, Mikel Arteta brought him to help us build from the back, be that ball-carrying, progressive passing defender. And you can see William Saliba's stats there in blue and Ben White in red. And of course, there is a difference in league, but William Saliba excels across so many of those areas. And again, reinforcing everything that you've said, Jules, and again, getting my mouth watering once again. I suppose my question to you is, where would you see him play at Arsenal? Does he play alongside Ben White as a left-sided centre-back, or would he play right-sided centre-back and see Ben White pushed out to right-back so he can play alongside Gabriel? What's your thoughts?
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see what Arteta does. I think in every top club now, you need at least 3 top centre-backs. I understand the desire for all of them to play and to play as much as possible, of course. And me and William have had this conversation before, and I think he's had it already and will have it again with Mikel and Edu and people at the club. Of course, it does. If you ask him, do you want to come and sit on the bench? He's going, but no, I want to play. I've had such a good season. Marseille, for example, will be in the Champions League. There's so many clubs who are looking at him and at the situation. If you Arsenal and Mikel Arteta, you keep him 100%. If you look again at City, at Chelsea, they will have to recruit, but Chelsea last season, at Liverpool, of course, everywhere you've got three really, really, really solid centre back, and you can add Holding to the fold, and maybe you only see Holding as a back three maker when you need to, but Holding is another decent option. But you need three top centre backs, and you have them then with White, Gabriel, and Saliba. So for me, it's so obvious that you keep him, you don't sell him anywhere, and you already start discussion for a new contract. And then in terms of playing, we've said you can play in the back three, you can play in the back four. It doesn't matter to him which one. He's right-footed, of course. I think Mikel likes a lot the left-footers to be on the left-hand side of every half space on the pitch. Yep. So that has to be playing in favor of Gabriel. But William can play on the left-hand side, even if he will obviously play with his right foot more than with his left foot. You can also play from the back on the left if you're right footer. This is no problem. You can drive the ball and progress the ball, driving it and running with it, even if you're right footed on the left side of the back of the two centre backs. But I understand why a lot of managers like to have a left footer and a right footer. So then if that's the case, then Gabriel stays and he's between White and Saliba, and of course White has a head start because of the season that he's just had. I think you can play them either the three together. I think you can play White and Gabriel. You can play White and Saliba. You can play Gabriel and Saliba. And this is what he offers to you. Then you, as you mentioned, you could move White as a right back as well if you need to, because I think he will be comfortable in that position, and then play all three of them, and your left back will be the one that is the most attacking one. I think that it brings you so many options, really so many options. And then the best will play. Yeah, of course, Gabriel and White already have an understanding because of the whole season played together. And they've been really good at times in the season. Sometimes they've struggled a bit more in certain games, which is normal again. They're young defenders, and this was their first season together. But I think Saliba will bring the talent up a bit. And then that means competition, and competition means people will have to raise their game at training, for example, which I think can be only beneficial for everyone. So I'm fascinating to see what happens. You would think, and I think William would agree in a sense, that if White and Gabriel are fully fit at the start of the season, because of what happened last year, they should be your starting partnership, I guess. Although there's also a case to be made that Saliba is very good on pre-season, in the tour, in training, in the matches that he's going to play, that we're not starting him as well at the start of the season.
Yeah, Mikel's going to have a bit of a headache. But do you know what? It's nice to have that headache, Jules, because for years we've lacked depth, and we need to start acting like a big club. So like you said, your Liverpools, your Chelseas, your Cities, they have and they will have three really good centre-backs competing for the two starting spots. And what you see in front of you now, progressive passes. Look at the way he's spreading the ball, successful progressive passes in the opposition half there, highlighted in sort of turquoise. Look at his positioning, where he's winning the ball, his defensive actions. I mean, interceptions, tackles, fouls, ball recoveries, from right-sided to right centre-back, all the way up the pitch. I mean, what's he like at reading the game, intercepting the balls? He's quite aggressive in the tackle. Yeah,
not so much. Like I said earlier, he's not rush into the decision that he's going to make. Again, you go back to the education of Wilfried Mbappe, and they in our, I was going to say in our generation, he's obviously much younger than me, although I know it doesn't look like it. But it was very much defending by standing, by not going to ground, defending on the front foot, so reading the game, anticipating the game, and that's certainly what he learned at Saint-Etienne as well. And then I think because he's so comfortable with the ball, I think that helped a lot for him to go and get the ball, go and intercept, go and get it, because once he has it, then he's got the game in front of him. And then usually, as you said, and as you can see on the open play passes graphic on the left hand side with the grey and the turquoise, he's been good for me. the most important is not the grade, because in your own half, it's easy to find your holding midfielder a yard ahead of you, or your centre backs next to you, or your right back. Again, those are, or your goalkeeper. These are easy passes that we can all make. However, in the opposition half, to make all those successful passes is really a credit of not only how good he is technically, but also the way he sees the game.
Mate, I'm so excited. The final slide is basically
I think
something.
really. Again, I'm biased, so there is things that he will need to work on, and there will be more pressure. Although in Marseille the pressure is super high, but pressure in the sense that this is the Premier League. This is a top 6 club that is aiming to reach the top 4 next season, to qualify for the Champions League. There will be a lot of games with the Europa League, the domestic cups, in a World Cup here, with a World Cup in the winter, where he aims to go and he has a chance to go, which again would add to the schedule and how heavy the whole season will be. But he has to go for it and he has to show what he can do, and I know he will, because again he has that in him.
And look, there's a quote there on the slide there from a recent interview that he gave, which is getting Arsenal fans a bit excited. I've got to pinch myself sometimes. Is he really coming back? Is he really coming home? But he basically says, I'll be back with Arsenal. I've played 0 matches for them, and I still want to show them my true face and have the chance of playing, to play for these fans and this great club. You mentioned contract at the start. I think as much as the pressure is on William Saliba to nail down a starting spot in this place and to impress the team, the manager, and the fans, the club is also a little bit under pressure, isn't it, Jules? I mean, if we don't get top 4 next season, you've got a year to go on his contract. He's probably going to be highly sought after by some of the European giants. What do you think of his contract situation? Is it important that Arsenal start thinking about tying him down now?
I think so, personally, because again, I think the talent is obvious to see now. I mean, the club have gone to see him in Marseille a lot. They've followed him through the whole season, which they do with every lone player, but maybe even more with him. They've watched so many of the games. They have all the stats, all the physical tests, all the medical stuff. They've got everything now, and surely you can see how good he is and how good he can be and how even better he can be with the coaching of Mikel. So 2 years is always a bit tricky, because he feels like, oh, you've got time, but he feels like you don't really have time, because like you said, in 12 months time there will only be a year left. So I would think that I would certainly start talking now, and even if he's not for you, even if Mikel decides that he's not for him for whatever reasons, then at least you've secured a significant transfer fee, which would be higher than 30 million. He's not worth 30 million pounds now, or euros, 25 million pounds now. No way. He's way above that. So regardless, even if he's not for you and you decide he's not for you and you want to sell him and let him go, the clubs that are going to come will have enough money to spend on him, and there will be a lot of them ready to sign him. So yeah, for me it's a no-brainer that already tie him up to a longer deal.
Do you think he will stay? Is that unfair of me to ask you?
No. I think he will stay. I want him to stay. I think he will stay. I've told him to stay. So I hope he's listening. But it's just, I understand how great the season was with Marseille. And even if he's from Paris, like Matteo Guendouzi, they've really adopted them as their own. And this is great. And they had a great season. There's Champions League to play, and they already qualified for the group stage. It's not like Monaco who have to go through the qualifiers. And also all the other top clubs who have inquired about him or want him or all of that. I get all that, but I can also see why he wants to come and prove himself at Arsenal. The Premier League was always his dream. Arsenal was always his dream. This was something that since a very young age he wanted, and now it's here. It's finally here. So I really believe that he will go and have a really good go at it. Work his ass off to get a place in that team, to show Mikel, to show Edu, to show the dressing room and everyone what he can do, and that the season that he's at in Marseille can be reproduced at Arsenal in the Premier League. Yeah, of course, he's going to face Haaland and Darwin and Lukaku and all the others, of course, and Cristiano and all of that. Yeah, and those will be huge tests. And this is the best league in the world. But I really believe he's ready, and I think he believes he's ready.
Fingers crossed. I'm really excited. And now, listen, I can't let you go by asking you about one final question. Matteo Guendouzi, what is his problem, Jules? I mean, he keeps. Look, I know it didn't work out for him. He was, ushered out the club, but he keeps talking, and he keeps talking about William Saliba, how he's going to come back next year. I mean, what is his problem? Can you shed any light? And
Yeah,
I
I
take
don't
it
think
his
he's
Arsenal
got.
career is over. That's never happening again.
Yeah, I don't think he has a problem. It's just that they're really good friends, and he wants to keep playing with him, and he knows how important he was for Marseille, and that if Saliba doesn't come back to Marseille, how difficult it would be for them to get someone as well. They won't get someone as good. I think it's pretty obvious, and I think that's the only reason why he's still hoping and trying to get Saliba back to Marseille. Again, I don't think it will happen. Things might change, but right now it's not really on the rising anyway. And for Matteo, he's just very, very passionate. I'm still a bit gutted. I think gutted is the right word for him leaving the club and why he hasn't worked out, because I really think that he had everything to be a huge part of this project, Arsenal, and for different reasons that we need a whole show to talk about, between Mikel and between the Brighton game and his own personality, I think, and maybe at times his own frustration. It didn't work out, but I think he also showed, certainly under Unai, what an important player he was and could have been for the club. And again, I think that passion, that energy that he has is super important in a dressing room. And yeah, he's still young, and he will learn a lot from what happened in the past. He will become and has become or became already a better player for it. I think he learned a lot from what happened the last few weeks at Arsenal, few months. And already in Marseille, he was very good. That's why he's in the national team right now. Even if the game last time against Croatia was a bit difficult for him. But yeah, there's a lot of things going for him again. But it was a shame that it didn't really work out, or didn't work out enough for him at Arsenal.
Yeah, there was no doubt of his talent. It was just his sort of off the field temperament, antics, whatever. And it just hasn't worked out. And some players, thrive in other situations. So that's fine. So look, thank you, Jules. It's been a pleasure to hear you talk about William Saliba. You have got my mouth watering. I'm really excited, and I think I'm praying that you're right, that he's going to come back. He's going to stay. He's going to sign a new contract. So William, if you're watching, you know what to do. But thank you. And Jules, obviously that's your Twitter handle on screen there. So at Laurens Julien, people can find you. People, please engage. And for everybody watching, there you have it. There's a breakdown on William Saliba. Let me know if you are excited as I am about William's arrival. And, please drop a like on the video and a subscribe to the channel if you're new. Julien, thank you very much for joining me. Hopefully have you back on at some point in the new season.
I would love to, man. Yeah, of course.
Thank you so much. And good luck with the rest of the summer. And of course, enjoy the World Cup when it arrives. So until next time, see you soon.